Is anybody in?
Not yet. Hello, YouTube. We're going to get started in just a minute if you're sitting there on YouTube.
Do I have, is it turned on? Do I have to do this?
Nope, you're good. You were good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get started in just a minute. So get yourself settled, get a drink, get some food. Welcome. Come on in. Ike's going to do a little intro about the group for those of you that have never been. How many first-timers do we have? I see at least two. Yeah, 2, 3, I think, in the back. Cool. Welcome. So we'll do a little intro there and then talk a little bit about the track. And then we're just going to dive in. So for the first timers, hopefully you saw the little video clip. I don't know if you saw the meetup. We've already picked a book and we've already read a first chunk of the book. So we'll dive into that. You'll learn about it. But if you hadn't read the book, you might have a little bit of catching up to do, but it should be no big deal. So Ike, you want to give us a little intro on TIG? Ike's in the back, by the way, hiding somewhere.
Right here.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. So welcome, you guys. I don't know if you can pick me up on the mic, but
A little bit louder, but you should be fine.
this is the San Diego Tech Immersion Group, and this group was founded years ago by Brad, Scott, and me. And the idea behind the group was that different user groups, and we've watched a lot of them kind of go. And we noticed that, one, that other user groups tended to not be really interactive. And two, they didn't tend to be a safe place for beginners. Like we watched someone's talk that we shouldn't actually call out because now we're on the internet. And we noticed that like people really enjoyed the first 30 minutes, but then after, as they started escalating the complexity level, that people started getting lost and zone out. So we started this group with the main idea that everybody's a beginner at something, and we wanted a safe place for beginners to be, to ask questions and to learn. And even, you know, one of us might be an expert on cloud computing, one might be an expert on data, one might be an expert on web design or on Angular development or on Docker. But like, maybe not a lot of us have a lot of expertise on Linux, right? And now that lack of Linux experience, it might be hurting us as we look at all the Linux support in Azure and AWS, and in our careers are getting increasingly multi-platform. We thought that would get less over time, but now it's getting increasingly multi-platform. So the point is, we're grateful for you to be here, but we want to talk about the difference in sitting in a TIG track. The first difference is we're going to stay with Linux for a few months. I don't know how many. Could be 3 months, could be 6 months. Looks like it might be 4 months. Because of that, we're going to be tackling this book that Brad's going to introduce in sections. And so as you come to the track, you commit that you'll actually do the reading on the off month. So we're going to have homework. And then the next time you come, we're going to talk about the homework that we assign. And then when you come again and we talk about that homework, we want it to be, so we're going to go through an assignment one at a time, and we're going to say, who had questions on this chapter? Maybe even us. And probably we will have a lot of questions on that chapter, right? So this isn't the time to like silverback. We call it being the geek silverback, where you like prove how much you know. That's not, we don't really need a geek silverback. We need more of a mentoring relationship where we help each other out, and together we learn and get better at this skill. Commitment that you make is that in our case, because we're recording, that you speak up when you talk. And this is kind of a new thing. We've been recording for about a year now, and we've learned like the louder you are, the more this mic can pick you up, and the more YouTube screencasts are when people go back and look at, you know, our old tracks. And if you guys want to go back and look at our old tracks, you can do that too. We've made tracks on DevOps, on Python, on Angular, on HTML, on JavaScript, even on C#, on Transact SQL, on Unity Framework. Some of them, even though they're years ago, are still relevant. So you're welcome to look at some of our YouTube videos from past tracks. And that's about it. Are there any questions about the homework or about speaking up or about being a safe place for dumb questions? Nope. Okay, and if you miss a meeting, by the way, it'll be on YouTube too. So you can, if you can't make it to all 4 months and you want to fill in gaps, you can use YouTube to do that too. Because we screencast, people are asking questions live, and as a result, we might stop the lecture or stop the discussion and just kind of pick up what people online are watching and make sure that we help them out too, and make sure that they feel welcome too. And if there's no questions, then I'll turn it over to my partner, Brad. He's going to talk about the importance of Linux and this book that we chose.
Thanks, Ike. And we do have a lot of people on YouTube, actually. 16 of you are out there on YouTube. So we are watching the chat in the back. If you have questions, jump in. Keep up with them as much as possible. One thing I didn't mention, actually, is where we're at. He just skipped over for those of you that haven't been here. Ike, myself, and Scott Reed in the back on the couch over there, staring at the YouTube room. Our partners at Crafting Bytes. That's the office you're at. This is our office here in Carlsbad. We're a custom software consulting company. So we're glad to have you here, and hope you got some pizza and some drinks and that sort of thing. So for this track, we're going to be going over Linux, and the book we're using is the Linux command line. And Paul will flip over here on his screen to the website for the book. And we went through a discussion, myself and Paul and Scott and Jim Counts here, and we kind of went around what we thought might be a good Linux book, and there was a couple of contenders. And this one kind of rose to the top for us as a good way to introduce you to the fundamentals you need to know in Linux. You're certainly not going to be an expert Linux user after reading this book, but you're going to know a lot about the Linux command line and be very capable in it. So linuxcommand.org is the website for this book. There is a free digital copy here, so if you didn't buy a hard copy and you just want to read it in PDF form, that's available on his website. There's also, you can also buy it on Amazon, so we got the Amazon link up, and there's Kindle version here and then paperback. This is what we got here. There's some discussion online about the different versions of the book and why we got an oddly printed book. It appears to be a normal shaped book, but the margins are excessively large here. So I don't know why. If you buy from Amazon, this is what you're going to get. So yeah, that's what we thought. Notes, but like in crayon or something.
It's like a second grade notebook.
I'm not sure why you need so much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I prefer printed books for tech books, so that's why I bought on Amazon. But it is free on his website. And that's one thing we try to do with TIG. If you haven't been here before, we try to get an accessible, approachable book that's not like $100 and not 50 million pages long. The other part of TIG, the first link we were showing there was SDTIG.com, which is our meetup group. If you haven't joined there, please make sure you register there. We post all the meeting information. As you see, the first Linux meeting, we post an intro video. This is something relatively new we've been doing for the last couple of tracks. These first meetings used to be just, let's talk about high level about the track and the book, and then give out some reading, and then we'd go home, and it'd be a really short meeting, and it didn't really seem worthwhile. So now we're doing an intro video, and we ask you to watch that before you come in. And in that video, we gave out the reading assignment for this meeting. So what we said in this meeting was we'll read through the first 10 chapters, which is a little over 100 pages of the book. It was pretty easy reading, I thought, if you have any familiarity with any kind of command line, even if it wasn't Linux. If you've done Windows CMD before or PowerShell, a lot of the concepts are going to be familiar. So that's what we're going to cover today, is the first 10 chapters of the book. And then at the end of the meeting tonight, we're going to talk about what the next chunk will be. And as Scott waved to Ike there, I think we've decided that it'll be 4 meetings long, and we can cover this book in 4 sections. But we're going to take a little poll from you guys at the end when we tell you what we're thinking about breaking it up and see how it goes. I think that's about it. If you can't, like Ike said, if you can't make it to the meetings, we do stream online, so join the meetup. That's where we post the stream link. Also, Crafting Bytes, our company has a YouTube channel, and that's where they're all streamed from. So if you just subscribe to the Crafting Bytes YouTube channel, you'll get notified of the live streams. Any other questions about the book or anything? Does anybody have the other version? Somebody said they got a printed version that wasn't.
I have 2.
I don't know. What does Amazon say? Look at the Amazon page.
Amazon claims first edition.
This says, I don't know. First edition, I guess. It doesn't say in here.
Where does 100 pages take you through?
End of chapter 10. It's a little over 100 pages. We read through the first 10 chapters. Yeah, through the end of processes, I think is the last chapter.
It's 2012 or 2014 or something.
This is copyright 2012.
Yeah, that's what but mine is printed normally.
Yeah, regular. Is the cover the same?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes.
How did we all get the wrong book? I don't know how we all got the wrong book. Maybe we didn't see. Okay, so maybe this is not the best Amazon link. Maybe there's a better one. I don't know.
Did everybody buy the new one, or did you want to get the used one? I know
Oh, this is just the new one, I think. I mean, it looked new. It was definitely new when we got it, so I don't know.
there was a few used ones available for like $12, and I guess they all disappeared.
Oh, it could have been. You can get it for free also. Like, it's, yeah, kill some trees. That's fine too. So.
Yes, sir.
A quick question. Are we having a meeting in November, December, or is it like last year?
Yeah, so usually with TIG, we skip November, December because our meeting falls on Thanksgiving and on Christmas. So we will probably break, but that gives us, that is going to break us right in the middle of Linux. So I think we're going to break. We broke like every year, all 6 years of TIG, we've always taken those 2 months off. So we probably will skip November, December just because it's holidays and nobody makes it and whatever. So
So you do 2 months this year and 2 months.
yeah, so Linux will probably carry us into February of next year, and then we'll pick the next track. So we'll all be Linux experts by February, basically. We'll have read the whole book. You could probably spend those 2 off months just learning VI, and then that would be fine too.
Correct choice.
Any other questions on the book or anything? Everybody able to get a copy? Got through the first 10 chapters? Yeah, everybody do the reading? Good. Meh, kind of. For those of you that have been to TIG before, what's the challenge level on this reading versus other ones? Was this pretty hard or pretty easy compared to what we usually do? Pretty straightforward?
Yeah, it seemed
Okay.
a lot easier.
Basic shell stuff, yeah. Okay, so I have another question for those, and those on YouTube can respond to get an idea. How many of you have 0 experience with Linux? Like, have never really done anything, maybe seen a terminal before, but that's it. Let's say 5%. How many people have 5% experience with Linux? So a lot of you have some experience with
What
Linux.
about Unix? Do you count?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
And-
anything other than Windows. And Mac would count too if you've done OS X in the shell. If you've done the bash shell on modern OS X, that would be fine too. Okay, so a lot of you have Linux experience. So that's a little different than I expected. We expected the group to be a lot of Microsoft-based developers that don't really know Linux and are interested in getting exposed to Linux because, as Ike mentioned, all the shifting Linux world. You have 4, is that at 4?
No, some in college and none are my.
Some in college and none from YouTube. Okay. Interesting. So for those of you that have some experience in Linux, somebody tell me, what's your goal of coming here then?
Like 30 years.
Well, why is that person not here in person?
Maybe they are. Maybe they're also logged in. And
It could be. Yeah. What are you hoping to get out of this track then? If you already know a little bit of Linux, what's the hope to get out? Because this will help us when we decide what the next chunks are. Because there's a couple chapters we're thinking of skipping, but we may not, depending on what you guys want to get out of it. So anybody want to offer up? Yeah.
Well, we're using Git Bash at work, and I just wanted to learn any more tricks.
Git Bash. Okay, so there's nothing on Git Bash in the book, but Bash tricks.
Bash.
Yeah, Bash tricks. Okay. And on Windows, Git Bash on Windows.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've got a server that runs this app called Greylock, and I installed it, and they want me to upgrade, and they raised me a version. I don't know how to upgrade it.
Okay.
And I need to figure out how to do that. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this.
So kind of like
enough to be able to
managing applications that you install into Linux. That is a bit of black
I
magic
know how
if
to
you
use
don't know.
apt-get. I know how to get it, but then what do I do after that?
So you version it. Okay.
You can
Yeah, there's some good stuff even in the first chapter about the kind of map of the folder structure on Linux and what should go in what folders. I thought that was useful for someone who didn't know, like what should go in etc, what should go in sbin, what should, so okay, cool. Anybody else? Yeah.
I think the most appealing, especially if you're a web developer and have to deploy your solution on lots of machines, to be no longer bound by the Microsoft license issues, especially because their license is very not easy to read. They say that
nobody reads
CAL
it.
licenses when it's a web-based app, but if you have a login screen against the backend, then you need CAL licenses.
Right.
It's completely confusing, and so I think that going to a Linux solution, then at least you don't have to worry about those.
Okay. Anybody else? So one thing I thought actually, which I'm surprised not to hear, and it's one reason why I like that we picked the track, is that the modern Windows cloud in Azure and just the modern Windows development stack is very Linux friendly now. The .NET CLR runs cross-platform now, and so Ike and I are Microsoft MVPs for different categories. It means less than it used to mean, but it means we get a cool little glass statue or whatever. But an interesting note on that is that we've noticed a trend in the MVP program that Microsoft is focusing on people who are doing open source development, Linux development, they are giving distinctions to people in the community that are leaders in Linux development. This is Microsoft giving this out, right? So there's a big shift in Microsoft to embrace Linux and to not in place of Windows. They're still obviously pushing Windows, but they want the approach of one platform to rule them all. If you want to come in and doing Linux, whatever, just come into Azure. Our tools will work. Our development stack will work. This is like the 6th time that they've tried this approach, probably. So we'll see what happens. They always say everything will work, but I think it's interesting. It's definitely, I mean, I would call it the post Steve Ballmer era of Microsoft has opened up dramatically. And as a Microsoft developer, if you don't know Linux, it's one of those things that in 4 or 5 years, you're going to be in some pain, because basically every Microsoft developer that's going to be worth anything is going to have some capability in Linux. They're going to run into some situation where code is running on Linux, or they're hit Azure and it's running on Linux. So I think that's very valuable to feel capable. Also, like I get
Can
the
talk about
yeah.
that for just 2 seconds? So I'm a data platform MVP, and I don't know if you caught this, but SQL Server is in preview on Linux. The SQL Server engine is in preview on Linux. There's a whole bunch of NDA stuff regarding that we can't really talk about, but one thing we can kind of talk about is if you think about what it would take for SQL to be on Linux, and then ask yourself what would motivate Microsoft to do that? Right? Like Microsoft in the past has been more concerned about selling Windows licenses, and when they got rid of Ballmer and they got rid of Sinofsky, like the selling Windows licenses became a little less important, right? And it was more about driving cloud consumption. Well, if you think about what SQL Server is real quick, SQL Server is a highly concurrent database system. And when you sit it over Windows, you end up having duplication of everything. You end up having 2 schedulers for thread scheduling. You end up having 2 memory managers. You end up having 2 file systems, right? Would it be beneficial for an RDBMS to have access to the source code so that they could change what was underneath to get higher performance, particularly if they were worried about driving cloud consumption, which is all about, processor cycles per second, IOPS, right? IO in and out. So my point is, like, Microsoft takes a flagship product and now just doesn't care what operating system it's on, because they're concerned about making sure we can get higher throughput so they can sell that, right? And that's just what I'm specializing. I mean, if you look at all the other things that are working on Linux now, .NET,
Xamarin. They bought Xamarin.
Xamarin, right? Yeah, cross-platform development, right? It's a huge shift. A huge shift.
Yeah. So yeah, we think Linux is very important, and I think part of it also is, maybe I'm the only one, but I always feel like there's certain scenarios where I walk into a development shop with other devs and they are very proficient in Linux and they do a bunch of things, and I just have that imposter syndrome. I'm like, dude, I am not that cool of a programmer. How do you know all these things? So I think for me, it's gonna be great to feel more capable. If you've worked with any startup in Silicon Valley, you've seen the magic they do in Bash on their Mac, and you go, that's cool. I want to know how to do that. So I think solving that imposter syndrome is, for me, is good. Do you have another one you were thinking of, Paul?
Oh yeah, whether it's Amazon or Azure, it's like 40% more expensive for a Windows VM
Sure.
than a Linux VM.
Well, additionally, if you're doing web development, maybe not right now. I mean, if you're still doing, a lot of .NET, but if you go to Node, I mean, that runs on Azure, that runs on Google, and that runs on AWS. So it's cross-platform. And like you said, the cheapest solution is and easiest really is going to be deploying to a Linux instance that they have.
But you can do .NET across platform now too. Watered down. You can't do everything, but you can do core CLR across everything on Linux. All right, so yeah, go ahead.
I heard about a podcast where they were speaking about the Ubuntu Server Edition. Ubuntu is really pushing now the server version. So they used to be just desktop oriented only,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're really making a server version.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about distributions and stuff. So there's a lot of great things about learning Linux, and then there's like a lot of pain in Linux that's been in Linux forever that isn't going away anytime soon. And as a Windows developer, you're going to feel some of that pain. The first is, what distribution do I install? And we didn't really talk about that in the book. We mentioned it in the video a little bit, and we gave you a couple of options of how to install it. We said you could install it in a VM. VirtualBox is a free VM software. You could, if you were running, if you had a Mac, you have a bash shell already in OS X. If you installed the anniversary edition of Windows, the new update to Windows 10 supports the Linux subsystem, so you have bash in Windows. Excuse me, Paul had mentioned you can get a Raspberry Pi device for like $5, and that runs Linux, and like it's a $5 computer that you could use. If you sign up for Amazon AWS and you haven't already have an AWS account, you get like a year free of Amazon services, and you can run the Linux free tier VM for that whole year. It takes up very little. You can just SSH into a remote box. Azure has something similar where you can get some free time. So there's a handful of ways. Did everybody get at least a copy of Linux installed somehow? Did anybody struggle with that? What was the distribution of choice? Anybody? Ubuntu? Ubuntu? Anybody not do Ubuntu? Everybody did Ubuntu. All right.
Somebody said they were doing Mint.
Mint.
Yeah,
Paul
Mint.
mentioned Mint.
Yeah, Mint. It's basically this. I mean, it's a different graphical front end, but it's a lot of the package updating and stuff like that. They still use the same repositories as Ubuntu, so it's still it's pretty much.
Nobody tried CentOS?
We do.
I
So
have
that's
it.
my preferred distribution, and that whoever put the motorcycle helmet on it, that's a Linux box back there. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
CentOS is the Red Hat.
The
It's
free
the
version of
free
Red Hat.
version. Well, it's the free version of their server software. They have a Fedora. Fedora is their desktop one.
Desktop, yeah.
It's actually more like their beta test.
Right.
So the company that acquired the company I work for, they're all Red Hat, and they're Silicon Valley.
So CentOS would be a distribution of choice.
Yeah.
What's online?
Yeah, we got a bunch of Ubuntu's. Someone tried Kali but failed. We've got a Robo Linux, a Fedora. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
So that's the first step in Linux hell, is what distribution do you install and why would you choose a different distribution? I don't know that I even have an answer for you why you choose another one, other than there was a mention in the book that probably put it most succinctly. It was like a little call out or something, and it said Windows is like a Game Boy, and you just have the Game Boy and you plug the cartridges in, you play the game. If you get tired of it, you can't change anything. It's just a Game Boy. Linux is like a giant pile of erector set pieces where it's just like, here's a bunch of crap, put it together yourself. So you start from nothing, and and so you decide how you want to put it together. So
Right.
I think that'd be why you pick a different distro if it does something
There's a
different.
book about that that has another analogy. It's called The Cathedral and the Bazaar. I don't know if you've read that
Mhm.
book. So basically, the cathedral is Microsoft. It's one thing. That's what you choose. Whereas the Bazaar, you go and like, I'll take a little bit of that. I'll take a little bit of that, and it's like all your packages are smaller. It's not as monolithic.
So I did CentOS. That's what I do. Then we installed that server as CentOS just because my familiarity is with that. That's what I know. So I've played around with Ubuntu a little bit, and I've done Linux, the bash shell on Windows, which is Ubuntu. The version that's in the anniversary edition of Windows is an Ubuntu distribution. So for what I've done in Linux in the command line, I haven't run into anywhere where I thought, oh, this is so much different than CentOS, other than the package manager sometimes. Right? Is it yum install or apt-get?
If they have it.
Yeah, so Ubuntu is apt-get, right? And
Yep. Ubuntu
CentOS
does.
is yum install.
Any Debian variant, I should say.
So there you go. Hopefully everybody got it installed. VM's probably the easiest, but a bunch of different ways to do it. Is anybody running the Windows 10 anniversary edition? Is that the way you're using Bash? Just Scotty. Yeah, Scott and Scott. It's a Scott thing, I guess. Okay. Cool. So let's jump into the book. For those of you that haven't been here, just if you have a question, feel free to jump in. We just kind of roll through the book. The way we like to do it is we had assigned reading chapters 1 through 10. We have collectively, Paul and I and Scott and Jim have marked some things that we want to talk about, and we have a couple of examples we want to show, and we'll go through those. But if you have something else that we didn't cover, or if we pass a section you want to talk about, just throw the question out there. Or if you want to throw your input in of what you can do with Linux, then definitely help us out. So what Paul's got here, let's just go with one terminal for now because we don't need the second one until we do cat. So Paul's flipped over to Mac, and so he's running the bash shell in Mac, which is a
Actually, I've SSH'd into the Ubuntu or into our server.
okay. So
This is
CentOS.
Linux.
So he's remoted into that box for all intents and purposes. We're just going to show the shell. So this is a CentOS build. So the beginning of the book is really talking about what is a shell. Chapter 1. I think that's pretty straightforward. We've all worked with a command line of some sort. Yes. CMD, I'm assuming. Okay. And then it's really just navigation of the tree structure. The first thing you notice in Linux is that the slashes go the other way in file paths, right? If you've never seen Linux before, the slashes go the other way.
correct way.
Sorry, the slashes go the correct way. Excuse me.
Oh, it died. Did you die on me?
As he gets his bash shell working here. Did you die?
Also, it was interesting when they explained that,
Yep.
like in Windows, you have a bunch of drive letters. Here, when you mount an external media, it hooks itself up into the tree. And I remember looking at my phone, always confused, where are my stuff? I have more than one way to find my SD card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there was a mention of the file system thing. I think we'll, I would say at the very beginning, understanding the file system tree and the differences between Linux and Windows, and where everything is mounted and it's all part of one tree. There's a single tree, right? They don't split the tree across drive letters. So you can mount media in any place, but it all is under the same root tree. What are you doing there, Paul?
Logging in.
Okay. All right. So the first thing he talks about is PWD. Just print the working directory. Are you getting fluxed or? Oh no, that's my machine. So print working directory, right, is going to show you where you are in the file system. So he's just logged in and he's inside his user directory. So they mentioned
stands for pwitdog.
pwitdog.
That's
It just
right.
so happens that his username and pwd work out perfectly. So it just tells him where he's at. Slashes go the other direction. /home/pwitdog, which is the same as tilde. I think they mentioned that in there,
Yep.
right?
And that's why it has the
CD to tilde. It's a special character in the shell. Will take you to your home directory. A lot of people in Windows, I would say, maybe this is just me, maybe it's an older Windows thing. A lot of people just kind of like party on the C drive, right? I don't know how many people actually use My Documents. That's as a programmer, that's a very annoying folder to put anything in, right? And so you don't really put anything in user directory, and you don't put anything in My Documents, and you just put it on the C drive and you own it. In Linux, it's like you put everything in the home directory. That's where you're allowed to write in. So think of the home directory more like
That's
a
your
Windows
home.
My Documents where it's localized to the user, but they make it much easier to manage that file system because it's not a ridiculously path thing with spaces in the path. Like idiots on Windows that put spaces in a path.
Can I mention something?
Yes.
When I was using git bash window, as a Windows developer and using the DOS command before that, I would type CD a lot and it would take me out of my current directory because in Linux, it'll take you back up to the home directory.
Right.
Whereas in DOS command shell, I believe it just keeps you,
It just tells you where you are.
it just tells you where you are.
Just typing CD, you mean?
Yeah.
So in Linux, CD doesn't go anywhere either unless you put dot or
No, that's my point.
take you home with
Yeah,
nothing.
that's
Oh,
my point.
Let's
You
see.
have to be careful. So
I didn't know that. So CD to Etsy or something. Right?
PWD is safer.
Oh,
Right.
I see what you're saying.
CD will take you home.
See, it took you right back. So
Learned something new. I didn't know that.
I've been
That was in the book, Brad. You should have learned.
Was it a call out that I didn't read? Okay, so and if you want to show, if you want to do dir, right, dir in command line to show what's there, it's called
Dir.
ls or list command, right? And so he's going to ls everything that's in there, and then he's going to jump ahead.
No, that's not so
Right, so the basic ls is the first one there, and it just shows all the folders, and then ls, la, and you've got additional information. So that's like
So the L is a line. You put each one on its own
Yeah.
line, and then A is show all. So anything with a dot is usually considered hidden. LSA will show everything.
If you have F, it shows whether it's directory or file.
correct. Yeah, and
What is T and R?
Time in reverse.
Okay.
Yep.
And L is long, not high.
long, wide format.
Yeah, L is
It
long.
gives you
Right.
the details.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a couple things on LS that they had too. I think it went farther on into chapter 3 that we'll look at in a minute. Actually, we probably jumped there. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, so there was a question about PWD, absolute path names, relative path names, right? Leading slashes, navigating up, CD ... moves up. Right? That's going to be familiar for someone in shell. think that's all pretty straightforward. Talk about period. Files at the beginning of the period are hidden, or generally are considered hidden. Linux is case sensitive. Difference between Windows and Linux, right? Linux is case sensitive, like a proper file system should
Correct.
be.
No, I disagree with that.
Case matters.
Case matters, man.
Case matters in languages, but.
All cases matter. Come on. The other thing I thought was interesting in that call out on 11, and I knew this, but I didn't really think of it in the way that he explained it, is that Linux has no concept of a file extension, right?
Correct.
So Windows, it's .ei.jpg, and it uses that extension to determine file type, or it uses that as a hint. Linux doesn't care. You don't need an extension. It's not going to, you can put an extension in the file name. You can put a dot in a file name and make it look like an extension, but it doesn't use that for determining file type. Now, some people may write Linux code or code that runs on Linux that developer and uses the extension to guess what the file name is. That's not really the right way to do it in Linux. He talks a little bit about the way that Unix or Linux can figure out what the file is. They look differently at the metadata of the file, basically, to figure out what type of file it is. So, so that was pretty cool. That was on page 11 in the call. Yes. Hey, Dave, I didn't even see you there. How's it going, man?
So I'm bad. I didn't read the book.
Shame.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me.
But I do run Sigwin.
Okay.
Windows servers.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't know though is, does each shell behave differently?
Meaning each shell, you mean the different types of shells,
Yeah.
like Bash versus something else?
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
So yes, Bash versus anything else. The other things will run differently than Bash and have different. And his
Different commands,
description
yes.
here is for Bash, right? At least everything he
Right.
said so far is Bash.
Right, we're not doing corn shell or.
Yeah.
C shell.
Yeah.
C shell.
Yeah. He mentioned Z shell, I think, but I don't see any reason why you do anything other than Bash at this point. I don't know, Linux experts. Is there any other reason to go to another shell? I don't think anybody really
Not at
runs.
this juncture.
I don't think anybody runs a shell other than Bash, really.
Running in ancient Unix.
Yeah, but Sigwin gives you Bash, right? So everything you do here will work in Sigwin, so it should be fine. He says a couple of things. Don't put spaces. In, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry. Go ahead.
I would admit I didn't finish all the 100 pages, but a long time ago, almost 25 years ago, I made a study on Unix for my degree. And at that time, the idea is the file system had a fork. Basically, every file had a second file. Linux has the same system, or is it?
Linux expert. I don't know the answer to that question. Do you know the answer to that question? Does it have a fork, a second file? Every file has a fork in
The
it?
old Mac, or the original Macs also.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No.
I can't imagine that would ever have been the case.
Because that's the way,
Second
on the Mac
file.
also, the early Mac, that's the way to store the metadata into a
Right.
file. which
Oh,
no.
Each file has an inode associated with it that stores the metadata.
Yeah, the inode is really just the block,
Second inode that stores even more metadata.
but those inodes are just blocks on disk where they are, right? They're not like like that inode for that file is always tied to that file. It's just a small
I know
chunk.
the problem was every time you were connecting a Mac, a long time ago to a DOS machine or Windows machine, it was an absolute nightmare.
Sure, because it didn't understand. Yeah, definitely. That was definitely nightmare. It isn't so much anymore. We might talk a little bit about Samba later and about file sharing between Windows and Linux, but it's a little more advanced than pressing LS. So we'll. So there's a couple other things on LS. I mean, you'll use LS a bunch. He says probably the most common command. And dir is probably the most common command in CMD, right? You're probably always doing it. Most of the stuff's pretty straightforward. A couple that I liked was -H. That was kind of cool because you see the size of the files in human readable form.
Like this?
Oh, you got to do the L. You got to do long. LH. Yeah. Because the L is what shows the stuff.
Has to have the size to make it human readable.
Yeah. Except that didn't. Well, those are all directories. That's why they're all 6. The 6 there is the human readable
Try
size.
a DU minus H.
DU
DU
minus.
minus H, that'll give you something meaningful.
No, just.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Yeah, just DU instead of LS. Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. So kilobytes, right? Instead of just bytes. Like the LSL is just in bytes. So a lot of times I'm looking at LSL for like, where's that huge file that's eating all this space? And you can tell by giant bytes, but it's just, I don't know. It's easier to read that way. Like, reverse was cool. -S is sort and T is sort by modified time. So some things that you would normally in Windows you do in the File Explorer by just clicking column headers to sort. There's command switches in LS to do that. So all pretty cool. Right. So on page 16, he talks about determining the file's type. So it doesn't use extensions, but it uses the file command, right? So can you do touch foo.txt or something? Oh, I guess you should put something in it.
Well, you could file on etc password.
Look, I just put, look at that. I just said foo.txt, which you don't want. So. Oh yeah, do it on password. Yeah, etc password. Because I can't type all letters. Right. So there, you see that file is /etc/password because God forbid we put the O and the R.
Western Digital. Stands for Western Digital.
Yeah. And it says ASCII text, right? So there's no extension on that file. It doesn't say TXT or anything, whereas Windows would say TXT, ASCII text, whatever. Linux doesn't have any concept of that. It uses the file command to do it. So that's pretty cool. Paul, you got some sticky notes. Just make sure I don't pass over things.
I still have the same ones.
Yeah. Okay. So I think
knowing where everything goes, like you went over that a little bit, but it's pretty. There's some really good, interesting stuff that like we should know. You know, for the places I used to be like, so I used to do MNT for where you had to mount your hard drives. So mounting them manually, you usually put them, but nowadays they auto mount, which is really a lot easier. Right. So if you plug in a USB drive, it just goes to media, some GUID, and that's usually where your USB drive is going to be.
So this is on like page 19. It starts. If you see 19,
19,
20, and 21. This was actually very useful. This is kind of something I feel like I should scan and print out and put on the wall because I won't remember. Linux does seem to prescribe a file structure more than Windows does. Like it kind of says these are folders that are there and these are the things that are supposed to be in these folders. And some of these are like for you as the developer, or like in your case, you're trying to update some app and it says like this is where third-party apps should live and this is where the binary should be. And so figuring out which version is there or whatever, it's good to know. SBIN is for system binaries, right? User contains all the programs and support files used by regular users. User bin, user lib, user local, talks about opt and mount.
It doesn't have swap, which is really interesting.
Swap is not, you don't see. Swap.
Right, I know it's yeah, but you can, if you are running low on memory, you can put it to a drive itself as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised it's not showing up in their list.
Because it's not part of this tree.
Right.
It's different.
Yeah. var log is something good to look at, especially because nothing ever goes right the first time. So like you start looking at logs and finding out why your stuff failed. It's a really good place to tail a lot of times too.
Yeah.
When doing actual work though, it is important to keep in mind that just because something's in the tree doesn't mean that it's local at all, right?
Right.
You can mount a network share and so like if you're like, why does it take forever to copy to this folder? It's because you're not actually copying to a folder, right? So if you type mount with no arguments.
Yes, sir.
And so that's everything that's mounted on that system, right? And where it actually is. So you can see that
in the most readable format possible.
Yeah, but I can see like
you make that terminal bigger.
Your home is on a different partition, right? Down there, SDV5. And
yeah, so there's that was a decent one to put on this server. There's 6 or 7 hard drives in that server, I think. So that's why there's a bunch of different mounts. There's a bunch of drives. We put most of it in like boot in one place and then most of it in another place.
So that's another thing that's like screwed me over on like long running systems that I've upgraded a lot. Like boot runs out of space, right? It's usually not that big of a partition and it's got a bunch of old kernels there, right? So if you're not coming from that, not realizing it's a separate partition, you're just like, why can't I, upgrade anymore? It's because like this one partition is full.
Right. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. It's different than Windows. In Windows, it's very clear when you're switching drive letters, what we would call drive letters, when you're switching physical drives. It's not as clear on Windows. We skipped over one thing that I think is important just because, so can you do a clear there? Clear, we haven't talked about that. Clear is very useful. Get rid of everything on your screen. And actually scroll up, right? All clear does is just do a page, right? You can't, you full screen. You can actually scroll in this terminal, right? Maybe not. Anyways, it just pushes you off the screen. It's actually still there. It's just, all right. We didn't talk about how to actually open a file and view the contents. So we looked at the etc password file with, what did we do with that? I don't remember. Oh, we did file on that to see the type. But if you actually want to look at the contents, you can use less. And you just say less and the path. And there's a little mention here that more is less and less is more, whatever. There's another.
Correct.
There is another text reading program on Linux called More, which is the older version, which could only scroll one direction, right? That was the big thing. You can only scroll down.
You scroll back. They're now linked together.
Now they're just the same thing. So you
Yeah.
type more or less, the same thing. There you go. See, more or less, less,
Yeah.
more, same thing.
Usually, if you type more, usually they like the systems here will have like an alias basically to less.
There's a couple things in less that are useful. Page up or B to go back a page, page down, or space bar to go forward, up and down to go lines, G to go to the end of the line. That sort of thing. Slash, and then what you're looking for is a search. That's really useful. Slash and pwitdog probably would be in there.
It actually used to work in Firefox too. If you type slash to search the page.
I think that's still a shortcut in Chrome. I think if you hit slash, it's the same as F3, I think. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Sound angry about
And then
that.
most
I know.
importantly, you press Q to quit it. Right? You'll find that this is very important in Linux. You'll get into these screens and you won't know how to get out of them. And so VI is one of them. The comic I saw the other day said like, this programmer has been a VI programmer for 20 years and he didn't mean to. It's just he can't figure out how to quit VI. So he's just still programming in VI. Yeah. So, all right. Cool. So that takes us to chapter 4, I think. Oh, well, symbolic links. Symbolic links are interesting.
Fascinating source of confusion.
Yeah. And I almost want to just skip right over them. The explanation here he had was decent, and he said, I don't see it on this page, but he did kind of say how it was similar to Windows, and Windows has what's called shortcuts or LNK files. They do have symlinks in Windows, which are like
They're pointers.
Yeah, it's basically the ability. Think of it like Windows shortcut. It's another file that they all point. You can have as many of those as you want, and they all point to one source file.
I think he did have a good explanation about it, like, and it breaks it down. It's not the same as those forks that he asked about, but like, there's a directory entry and then there's the actual inode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a symbolic link is just like pointing at that directory entry, which in turn points at the inode. And the hard link, which comes later, is just another directory entry pointing at the same inodes.
Right. So we're going to jump through all of that actually. So in chapter 4, he had a section called the playground. And it was a cool little example. So he talks about copying and moving and removing and making DIRs, and then he walks through a little exercise to do it in the playground. So let's see if we can do a little bit of this just so you can follow along, and you'll be able to see kind of all of the things we're doing.
I'll do my best.
So I'll just kind of read it to you. So the first thing so we're in our user directory. We're in that. How would we tell what directory we're?
Sorry.
PWD.
It's like we've never talked together. All right. So the first thing he says we want to do is we want to create a directory called playground. So anybody have any idea how we're going to do that? Make dir. There you go. Okay. mkdir and then space in the name of the directory you want to do. That's the same as MD and CMD, right? MD.
So in DOS command window, you can do mkdir or MD. Can you do MD as a shortcut?
Nope. They stole from us.
You could alias it. We skipped over that, I think, but you can alias commands to be whatever, so you could alias that.
Yeah.
But just use mkdir and DOS and then it'd be fine.
Right.
You just do the same. So now if you ls, right, we would see that there's a dir called playground. And so now we can, you know what, this is interesting. The beginning of playground, he says, do a CD blank. So he forces you back to your home directory. So there's what we talked about. CD takes you back. So now we're going to go into the playground directory, CD into playground. And there's nothing in playground. If you were to ls, you'd get nothing, right? Because we just made it. It's empty. 2 hidden files, dot and dot dot.
Current.
Yeah, current, yeah, pointer to this directory and the parent. And then he wants to create 2 directories underneath playground. So you're inside playground and you're going to say make dir, and you can put multiple directories, dir1 space dir2, and it'll make 2 at once. So that's kind of cool. I don't know, does CMD does that? I don't know. I've never tried that in CMD, but I guess I have CMD open right behind here. I should just try. Let's see.
There's another cool trick you can do at it. I looked in the book and didn't notice if he mentioned it, but like if you want to create like a whole like tree, if you wanted like dir1 / dir2, right?
Yeah.
Do make dir-p. Yeah.
Makes it a full path.
It does work in DOS. You can do that in CMD also.
Cool.
Make dir1 space dir2.
So what is it? So go ahead.
So do like make dir-p. Yeah, dir3 / dir4. So dir3 doesn't have to exist. It creates dir3, then dir4.
And yeah,
It's under it.
There it is.
Cool.
I can do that several times.
It saves you a lot of time if you have like 6
Yeah.
directories you're trying to make it once.
okay, so let's go. Okay, so you're gonna say playground. So now he wants to copy the etc password file we've been looking at, copy it to where we are currently. So cp is the copy command, and then a path to what you want to copy and where you want to copy it to. So source destination, right? etc password, and then dot is current destination. Dave.
So in Cygwin, I noticed that you can just start typing a couple letters in a directory and then just hit tab.
Mhm.
And it'll autocomplete.
Same thing.
Okay.
Same thing in CMD also in DOS, which you should use heavily.
But it's also case sensitive.
It is case sensitive, and
Yes.
in Windows it's not. Yeah. So he did cp etc password to dot, and if you ls now, you'll have something in here.
One quick thing, actually, the small advantage that DOS has over Unix, I think, is when you hit tab and you can just tab through things, right?
In Linux, you hit tab and it shows you all the possible completions.
Possible commands, but you have to start typing letters to figure out.
It
which one
stops
is.
too,
It
where the
stops.
word
Yeah.
deviation
So
stops.
do D tab right here, right? D tab. No, that was too many. DI tab. Oh wait, that was
No,
everything.
that was it. That was all
That's
the
stuff
Ds.
that's on the
Yeah.
path,
So that's what
right?
I'm saying.
There you go.
It's-
That's all-
No, that's on the path, right? So this is everything that would complete with DI. So he hit tab twice. So DI, and it's
But if you said
ambiguous.
CD space D and then hit tab.
D and then tab.
Yeah,
And then see, it's ambiguous,
fills
so it
dirt,
blinks.
And it's like,
Right.
F you, that's it.
Pick
I'm
one.
Stopping here.
Right.
Whereas
Well-
DOS at that point would just cycle through them. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2,
And you can
3.
shift tab to go backwards
Yeah,
in
you can
DOS,
shift tab to
which
go
is
back.
nice.
That was it.
You go, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really handy.
Small advantage.
Okay, so make their playground, make their 1, 2, 3, CP the thing, good. LSL, you're already there. Okay, so let's just repeat the copy. He wants to repeat it and show an option in CP. So from the playground directory, you want to CP-V /add to password to dot. And that's the verbose option in CP, and it's just going to show you exactly what it's doing. You can see he's trying to tab complete. That's why it's blinking on him. And every time it blinks, it's like it's ambiguous. It's ambiguous. Keep typing. It's ambiguous until it stops blinking, right? Now, this is verbose, just showing you copied from etc password to dot/password. And so he just put dot as the destination, and it assumed to take the same file name you copied from and put it in a file named the same thing where you're at. Right? So now we can move and rename. So he wants to use the move command to rename,
Right.
which you do in DOS as well. You do move in Linux. We just saved a couple characters and type MV and the source and the destination. So file name is PS tab, and then what you want to call it, he calls it fun. And now if you ls, you'll see that it's no longer password, it's fun instead, right? That's just a file rename.
Passwords are fun though.
Yeah. And now,
If you don't specify destination, they just put it where you currently are.
Correct.
no, you'd have to put dot, right? You can't
No.
leave the second parameter.
If you're
blank,
using
can
the
you?
Yeah, you have to have that second parameter.
Yeah.
Well, it would be either way. It would be meaningless, right? Move password to where
Nothing.
I am. It's already there, right?
Well, in DOS, that's what it does.
Yeah, but in DOS it'd be meaningless unless you were just trying to trigger a file rename or something, because it wouldn't, moving it to itself doesn't do anything.
My
Right? It just-
experience, I hate to do this copy from and to because I always worry about the two being in the wrong place. I
yeah,
always move myself where I want and then bring it in.
yeah. So source, destination in Linux, and the copies in and the move. Source comes first, destination becomes last.
So another fun trick I don't think you mentioned is the -B parameter on CP. So once you copy password again from the original location.
/etc. You can see that he's only typing a few characters until it. It's a heavy
So,
use of
go.
tab completion.
What?
Here to here, yeah.
The dot -B.
And then, yeah, go for it. Well, no, just
B.
leave it off. You need to get it over here once first. So go ahead.
Oh
and do
yeah,
that.
because
Now you do.
Now do it again and put a -B in front of the.
So he
or
just-
CP.
he just pressed up on his
B
command
or
line to do
B?
the last
B is in
the
boy.
last command, right?
Ah.
So you just
Command history.
command history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now do an ls. So that made password tilde, right?
Mhm.
That's your original password that you had there. So when you clobbered it, it backed it up for you. So the B is for backup.
Oh,
So for all you people who like to first cautious people, put .old and then copy it. You can just do it all at once, right?
-B will cut, and the tilde is the backed up copy. Okay. So let's clean up a little bit. So we'll remove the 2 password files. So RM, and we'll do a wildcard match. So star, right? Delete everything with password, and that will include the tilde one too. All right. So then he uses move to actually move. Question, Dave?
If you have a long command on a line, like with Windows, I can like control backspace. I can start going back word by word by word
Yes.
quickly. How do I do that in?
He mentioned that in
Alt
here.
B
Alt.
go
Yeah.
backward by word, and Alt F goes forward by word.
Yeah. What do you have that page up? There, he mentioned it in here.
No,
Yeah, I do remember that.
So also like
that's just.
There's a couple other
like this, right?
Right.
If you can see it right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just holding the Alt key and the arrows, just like you would.
Alt left arrow and alt right arrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's even.
There it is in the first couple chapters. There's a thing and he mentions all the terminal navigation stuff. So that is in there. Okay, so he's going to move the file from fun to dir1. So mv fun space dir1 moves it first to directory dir1, right? So then ls that. Right, and ls where you're at also to show that it's gone. Yeah, good. So we just moved it under. There was already an existing thing called dir1 source destination. Just moved it into the subfolder. Then move from dir1 to dir2.
I gotta go into.
Yeah, CD into.
I can do it from here.
Well, no,
too.
do it from here. He doesn't want to do CD. So you're going to move from dir1.
Right.
Source is dir1 / p tab, right?
Like that.
Why is that not? Oh, fun. Sorry, it's F. Not renamed it to fun.
Yeah.
F tab, and then move that to dir2. So destination is just dir2. Right, and then ls dir2.
Do you have to put the slash at the end of the folder?
No, it just automatically does it.
Now when you tab complete, it puts it in there. Yeah.
Because it assumes you're gonna type some more stuff.
Good. Yeah, just moving around directories. Okay, and then move from dir2 back up to playground. Well, MV instead of VM. Virtualize this one. MV from dir2 fun. And how would we move it? Oh, I gave it away. Sorry. Dot would move it back to where I am. Right? Yeah. And it's move, not CP, so we're taking it. We're not copying it, obviously.
So
Yeah.
when you're using copy, I saw that you do from etc password dot to dot.
Just to dot.
Yeah, but can you just put the directory if you're running the command from the directory?
You could also say, so do CP from etc password. So he's just going to go up in the history here.
I'm lazy.
You can just keep scrolling. Yeah, and change that from dot to fun. You just go to dir. Yeah. dir2 / foo. Right. Enter. That should work, right? Now ls dir2. So he moved it to subdirectory and renamed it, right? Instead of putting dot, when we copied it, we gave it a new name.
Right.
You can do both of those, right? So the last piece is the file name, unless it's already a directory, then it will just move it with the same file name into that subdirectory.
I don't know if it's
Rem
appropriate at
that.
this point, though. I think you can
Remove
type
that.
history if you want to see the full
Yeah,
history.
go ahead. You can type history, and it's all the last 500 commands, and these numbers indicate where they're at. And you can actually do a bunch of stuff with history to get, which command number. Most interesting is the -R for reverse incremental search. So you can type -R and do MK.
Control R.
Control R. Sorry, Control R MK. Yeah. So it's going to do a search based on the characters you typed in and bring up the most recent one that has those characters in it. So if you're like, what was that move command I did 6 commands ago? I don't want to press up. You just press Control R MV and it'll be like, here's the last move command you did. Great, that's the one I want you to do. Yeah, that's very useful. Especially if you're doing a bunch of repetitive commands and then you go, oh yeah, I had this grep like 50 commands ago to find something. What was that? Control R grep tab and you're back in business.
I wonder, I was using that thinking I had to put the letters in reverse too.
It wouldn't surprise me. It is Linux, and I just, Okay, so give me a clear and an ls, so we're not at the bottom.
Also,
Control RCL. That'll probably get you there, right? It'll find the last time you did clear. Let's just see if we can actually make that work. CL tab. Boom. Enter.
Booyah.
All right, give me an ls. Where are we at? I have no idea. Fun. Good.
How about we do a PWD so we know where we're at? instead?
Thank you. I want to know where we're at in the. That's
Doesn't it show you where you're at? It says you're in the playground.
so
Yes,
meta.
but it
So
only gives
meta.
you it only gives you the last directory. So I mean, if you have
A bunch of folders called playground, you would not.
right,
know
or
which
if
one you're
Brad
in.
has a playground too,
Mhm.
which as the admin I won't let him have.
Okay, so now we're gonna get a little bit crazy and he's gonna like move directories around. So we've got fun at the root, so MV fun to dir1.
Oh, it is there.
So can you, is MV and CP kind of used interchangeably in some cases?
No.
No, CP would leave a copy at the source. Move moves it around. Okay, and then you're going to move dir1 to dir2.
So there's no cut.
Move cuts. Yeah, but you got to put it somewhere. I mean, you could do RM if you want to delete. RM would delete, but move is going to move it from the source to there, right? So now LSL on dir2. Okay, so we moved. Oh, we had that extra foo in there. Can you rem foo? We'll get to remove in a minute. Tell us that again. So we moved dir1 under dir2, so now we have directory structure, dir2, sub dir1, and under that is the password file, or I think what's called fun now. Okay, and then he wants you to LSL dir2/dir1, so you can see what's underneath that. So
I tell you, as a father, most boring playground ever.
but it's so safe. So right, so there's
It's only got
the
passwords.
there's the directory, right?
No, I know, but I
And
mean it's the password file.
CD to dir2, dir1, and then PWD.
Passwords are in shadow.
Yeah.
It does have fun though.
Oh.
The jokes are terrible. Okay, and PWD. Right, so that's what we created. Playground/dir2/dir1. Good, yeah. Just a whole bunch of moving and LSing. And now he wants to put everything back. So move dir2/dir1. So go back up to CD to playground. Oh, how? Oh, yeah. You're smarter than the average bear. So notice what he did there. He was at somewhere down in his home directory. I don't know where, whatever. I just know I want to go to a subfolder under my home directory. So CD to // tilde gets you back to your home directory, and then right underneath that's playground. So that's a fast way to jump up. Move. So now you're going to move dir2/dir1 to dot. Yeah, ls. Okay, and then you're going to move dir1/fun dot. Plus. Yeah, there you go. Right. So we pulled them apart and then pulled the one out. Should be pretty straightforward, right? Any questions on move, CP, ls, any of that stuff? If you've done CMD before, hopefully this is some refresher, and maybe you didn't know some stuff with tab completion. A lot of this stuff actually works in DOS as well. The move and copy commands are move spelled out and copy spelled out, but tab completion works the same, and the concepts are very similar. And we did RM, which is remove. In DOS, that's DEL for delete. Or erase. Or erase.
But this also has a delete directory cascading ones.
Yeah, so that's RM-R for recursive in Linux.
And if
Remove
it has stuff in
recursively.
it,
Why do they call it recursive?
because it goes through the tree down.
Yeah, so it will go all
It's
the way down
recursively
all
down.
of the nodes of the trees. Yeah.
If it has something in it, though, you have to put an F on it as well.
So is there a way to search a file? Let's say you don't know where the file is. The file structure.
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Massive.
There's many different. Oh, you mean anywhere on the whole system?
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
Oh, use
Oh,
it.
fine.
Yeah. Find. You can do find, right?
Yeah, that was helpful.
Paul, are you having trouble finding fun?
I am.
It's ugly, it'll do it.
Find
It
dot-
does 90.
Find
Dash name.
find dot and then fun. You need the dot though, right? You need find dot
It needs to know where to go from.
Thank you.
from here,
Yeah.
dash
Dash
name,
name.
and then it tells you where it's at. Now, if your file system's gigantic, they can take a while.
Yeah. So this would, if you did something like this, it would take.
Yeah. And then, so now it's just yelling because it's trying to go into directories recursively, go down the whole tree.
Is that in here yet?
Yeah, but not yet. We'll get to that. And he's denied permission to read these directories all over. So it started at the root of the whole system and recursively went down every directory tree. When it hit folders that it wasn't allowed to, it threw this error. That's why I got all that. And then it found it somewhere in there, but we can't even see. Or you control C. So.
I control C, which is cancel.
And we'll talk about in a minute how we would rerun that command with permissions to do it in super user. Okay, so he does.
Talking about how we would get rid of the output.
Oh, you okay?
Oh, redirection.
Yeah.
Well, we got to hard links and symbolic links. So do we want to dive in there or no? Okay. No, we'll take that as a no.
Yeah.
We already did REM, so we're on
That's a
to
good idea.
chapter 5, which is working with commands. Right. So type was a new command to me. I think a new command to Scott too. And he talks about the types of commands in Linux. There's executable programs commands built into the shell functions, or an alias for a command. So we said you can alias mkdir, you could alias to md if you wanted to be like DOS, that'd be an alias. You can use the type command, type, and then the name of the command you want to know. So type space type is the example that he gives us.
Nope.
And it says type is a shell built-in. So that's the type command is a shell built-in command. So do type ls. ls is aliased to ls -- color equals cty. That's actually telling you that the underlying ls command that you use in your shell when you type ls, it's not just straight ls. It's actually ls with, this one is color auto, with a parameter already set, color auto. And that's why ls is colorized. Look at the second line in the terminal there. You see dir 1 2 3 is blue.
Yeah.
The reason it prints color is because the default ls has -- color turned to auto.
So is there a way to find out the type of the true ls command unaliased?
That's a good question. Yeah, you'd have to have the path to where ls is, which would be an s bin somewhere probably. So that's a good answer. So which is on page 41 to do which space ls. If you want to find out where ls is, user bin ls. So you could do type space / user bin / ls and see what that says. You could do which. User bin ls is user bin ls. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's do Jim's fun. Which. It's a sandwich shop. Hopefully it says this is a sandwich shop. Which, alias which equals alias craziness. All kinds of options turned on for the which command.
So is it / question mark to find out all the different options for a command?
Man pages.
Man.
Yes. Okay.
Man.
Let's do a clear and then give me a man space ls for manual. Boom. All right. So this is like, if you want to know everything about a command in Linux, it has a man page or a manual page. And they are broken down in pretty much the same structure. And he talks about man pages. And it says here is, well, he said not all of them follow the structure. They don't have to. It's just a text file.
Pretty standard.
And so he does talk about this in, I don't know where.
On page 43 for those
43,
playing
right.
at home.
So 43 talks about man pages, how to read man pages, what the sections of man pages are, how to get to sections. Honestly, in my experience, I never read the man page. It's just too hard to consume in the format it's in. I can't find what I want. All I do is
It's very good.
I just hit
I like it.
Q and I get out of the man page because I'm not going to sit here and read. Now, this one's nice. It's at the top. It tells it. But you can just do ls. Usually, you can do ls -- help or / question mark. Those are all options.
Or just go to Chrome and type man ls in the address bar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get the same thing.
You get the man page,
Same
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So this is like you would see in CMD when you typed CMD, and he even said a lot of times, if you just do ls and some crap that wouldn't work, a lot of times the error page will show.
What's that?
P. Append the indicator to directories.
It's important.
Yeah.
So you know what a directory is.
So usually all the commands will have a -- help or a / question mark or something that will bring up this help page. And I think this is, for most people when they're trying to use a command, this is more useful.
Yes.
_1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was a trick he talked about. Well, you don't want one.
That's
One
the
is the
same
first. You want man 3 or something. Man 3 ls.
And 1 is the command.
The commands only. Yeah.
Yes, which is the default as well.
Yeah, see, there's no 3 entry for
And then there's other manual pages that are like programmer guides, like here's how you access this stuff
Yeah.
programmatically, but not for ls.
It's sections 2 and 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
ls
what
doesn't
would
have
be
any of those
one
sections.
things that we would find section 2 for.
Section 2
Toby?
is system calls. Those are things that the kernel itself directly implements.
Yeah.
Section 3 is where someone wrote code to do something that
Yeah.
may or may not have a system call behind it.
But so how would we get an example of that?
Echo maybe has it. I don't know.
Man to CD.
What, say again?
Like
Man
fork.
to CD.
Man to CD.
No entry in CD for 2.
Just try man fork with no
Man,
no number.
exec.
Man fork.
Well, it's jitter, that's it.
Oh, man5 password has
So
one.
you see, like, it says, like, include this header file. This is like a programmer's manual. It says Linux programmer's manual, right? It's not about running command. It's about this other aspect of Linux.
So this is all on page 43 in the book, by the way. If you want to read table 5.1, it lists the different sections of the manual and how to jump right to a section if you know what you're looking for about the command. Most of the time when people are using the command line, they're looking for how to use it. They want a usage example, which is man1 or just dash help.
And then also it's just like using less. So it's, space bar to go down, up arrows, down arrows. Space bar goes a whole page. Down arrow does one line at a time, and the quit is Q. So don't get stuck in that.
We went do a clear. We did a which, but I wanted to touch on again. I use which a lot, especially when I'm dealing with packages like you were talking about, third parties that you're installing, and you want to know. I use it 2 ways. One, I want to know if this thing is on the path, right? So I could type like foobar, and it's like I don't know what foobar is, and you're like what? Or you could say which foobar, and it'll tell you immediately, like do which foo, for it won't exist, right? And it will say, I didn't find foo, no foo, and it'll show you the places it's looking, so you can see what's in your user path, and you can go, oh, that's why I didn't find foo. The path to foo is not in the user path here, and that explains it to me. Or like Paul said on the first one, which man, that tells you where man is at. So if you're looking for like a third-party app, or
Which Python?
Yeah, which Python and which node. Which node is a huge one. If you're doing node, there's so many versions of node. You're like, which node is running? Which node will show you the path exactly to where node is, and you'll know which version of node, right? So we have no node. We have no node.js in this box. This box is super clean. So which is really useful, I think, for that kind of stuff. Okay. Man pages. I like this. This is on 43. Apropos. That was a new one to me. It's the same as man K, right? But me and Scott agreed that I won't remember man K, but apropos I will remember just because it's something I would never type otherwise. So type apropos floppy, and it will search all of the man pages in the system to find the places where floppy is used. So you can find the commands that use floppy, right? List of man pages for possible matches based on search terms. So do man-k floppy, and we'll see it's the same thing. Basically saying find, like, I think I can use a command called floppy. What is that one called again? Is it called, and it'd say, well, here's all the man pages. So you could use FD format. And you're like, oh yeah, that's how I do the floppy thing. So it's kind of a weird thing, but I could see it being useful.
Again, those are the sections in the parentheses.
Yes. Yeah. So you would say
Right.
man for FD. So try that, just man for FD. And there you go. It says floppy drives are blocked, and now you're talking something to do with floppy drives. It's like, I don't know what you want to do. But
I don't even know what floppy drive is.
That's basically a way to search the help for all the commands, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for specific search terms. So it doesn't even, like, floppy is not the command. You just say, I think it's something to do with a floppy drive. It's like, oh, FD can deal with floppy drives. That's the way to search for. There's a couple other ones in here, help and info and whatever. What is? It's not as important, I don't think. Command aliases. So let's alias makedir to MD. Right. Oh, is MD already do? So do which MD? Here's what I do. Is MD already taken? Which MD? Okay, no MD. Cool. So nothing taking MD. So we'll go ahead and clear just so we don't get a bunch of garbage on the screen.
Aliasing specific to you.
Specific to your session in the terminal.
Right. Only so
As soon
when
as
I
you close
log
the
out,
terminal, you
it's
lose your
gone.
aliases. There's a way to persist them, but what we're going to do right now is going to be specific to this terminal session. So not nearly as useful as persistent aliases, but just to show the concept.
But it's the same way to do it in a persistent way. You just have to
You just put it in a script
have to
that's
save
on
it to
startup.
disk.
Yeah, so alias MD equals quote maker. Okay, and now do which MD.
That one.
Alias to makedir. And now what was the other thing we could do to see what type of command it is? Just say type, so do type MD. MD is alias to makedir. Now you do MD foo, I think, or MD bar. You already have foo. LS. There you go. Right. So you can alias your commands, and you can write those aliases into persistent state so that your shell's always that way. But it is specific to you, although you could put aliases at the system level, I suppose, if you wanted to add them. Since you're using get a lot, I know a lot of people that alias get commands because there's a sequence of commands that you may want to do and you hate typing it all. You can alias. So the one in the example, he aliases cd/usr semicolon ls semicolon cd dash. So 3 commands can get aliased to 1. Yeah, exactly. So alias, this is one that's been floating around the internet lately. Alias called YOLO equals get push dash force. You only live once, just push it. So if you just type YOLO, it's just like, and it'll do everything. Right? So you can alias them however you want.
Yeah, I do
So-
get fetch, progress prune, so that'll actually.
So,
be-
yeah, so just alias it to get fetched
Yeah,
because that's the way you want to fetch.
A lot of times, if you're just tired of typing a lot of flags, just
Alias. Yeah, flags.
Yeah.
If you always use ls-l and you're like, I would never use regular ls, just alias it
Yeah.
to something else, right?
Try L.
Very quick
There you
question.
go.
Also,
Mhm.
I started to make my own cheat sheet, but do you guys know of any place that has some decent cheat sheets for all?
Man ls. Yeah, the internet will have it. You can
Yeah,
search it. It exists
Pretty
in
sure
a
it's probably
million.
the first thing ever put on the internet.
Yeah, probably in the Unix news group was. What are all the command switches for ls? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Let's go get a nutshell.
So LS is actually already an alias.
Yeah, it's alias with the color turned on.
So if you wanted to say, I want color turned on, but I also want it dash LTRA or something.
Yeah.
Now, how do I create that alias to be LS?
You can override the alias, right? So he says you can remove the alias. So
well, this one you won't. This one's funny because it's a system-wide one, right? So you're not gonna be able to like you
but
can't.
for your terminal you could, right?
Correct. So you would create your own alias, and whatever is localized overrides the
Right.
system-wide.
Right.
If that makes sense. So like we'll get into how to persist it later, but that takes priority over the system one.
Yeah, so you could alias locally, and you could override it. And he talks about how you can unalias. So let's unalias MD. So just say unalias MD. And then if you type MD, it'll say I don't know what you're talking about. So it takes it out. But you could replace the alias that's there to change your LS or something if you wanted to, and it's aliasing star. Right. So then YOLO work to try to run Git there, but Git's not installed, right? Good. All right. Any questions so far? We're on to chapter 6, redirection, checking time, 7:20. We're good. How's the on? Oh, we've lost. We're down to 9 viewers. We've
You're
scared
boring.
off half of
You
our
bored them
audience.
to death.
I'm
So,
sorry.
Alias, another alias.
You want to do another one?
Alias, yeah,
Yeah.
because LS is an alias, right? So you could alias, bar equals LS, and it's alias of an
So in
alias.
the case of LS, which is a color, if you alias that one,
It will be an alias.
adding more flags and still keeping the color. Or the
Yeah,
color?
yeah. So alias bar equals quote ls dash l. Let's just do that, or la or something.
I
Sure.
thought you wanted to alias
Enter.
the alias command.
Yeah, and now say type ls or type bar. Sorry, type bar. Bar is alias to LSA, and if you said type ls, it's alias to something else, right? And then if you type bar now,
No bar.
Yeah.
and you get
So it's
color,
colors.
you get color and LSA, right? So it's just combining the
Is it the
aliases.
one that are the same?
So unalias bar. Do an unalias on bar.
Which,
Dash color auto right here.
Alias, alias?
Yeah.
in the alias, but
In the alias for LS, out of the box for Linux, the for this distro,
For this distro.
the LS
Most-
is aliased to dash color auto.
I've seen people customize the color on LS and then call their customized color
Sure.
Yes, you can.
flag.
You could do that.
Right. I'm not sure how to do it off the top of my head.
Yeah, you would say like
Man,
Like a certain
LS.
type of file would be blue and a certain type would be red. And then you're calling it like a
so some
or something.
yeah,
There you go.
some of that's already there. So we're just showing blue for directories, but like reds and greens and stuff are part of the color scheme. So some of what you might be seeing is just built into the auto color. But I think you can customize it. I've never done that, so I don't know.
It said color equals when, and you probably set up the.
Yeah, you can probably set up some conditions of when to use certain colors. Okay, we're gonna talk about chapter 6 and redirecting input. So this is pretty cool. And it's something that happens a lot in Linux, and I don't see it happen nearly as much in DOS. I just don't see people using redirection that much. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but
I
it
mean,
seems
so more in DOS, you have to use redirection. Right?
When you're shell scripting,
You say more from something.
You know, a very good one in DOS is echo space yes, piping sign more, piping sign format C colon post.
you want to do that on your machine real fast? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So this one you want to bring up 2 terminals. We're gonna do the cat thing here because this is like catting and redirecting. So
How catty.
we're gonna
Give me a
You
minute.
broke your pipe. That is cool, actually. I got Brad. Be careful. Thanks for setting that up. Exit one more time. I just want to show something that I think this is cool, and SSH back in, and then just don't type your password. I didn't realize this. See that little key icon? That's LastPass, right?
Yeah.
So if you have the LastPass extension, which is kind of crazy, it knows how to do terminal passwords, which is pretty cool. So I think that's
If
handy.
you want a security risk, go for it.
Well, I don't know.
It
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
the whole point of LastPass is to obscure, right? So,
Yeah, who gets revealed everything anyway.
Yeah.
yeah. My password is already out there 5 times between Yahoo and LinkedIn and Amazon and Home Depot. So.
What are you guys doing there?
There's two.
Oh, okay. So what we're about to do here is we're going to show a couple of commands, and we're trying to show. We're going to be tailing a file live and watching it update. So we want a place where we can see the file updating, and then a place where we can perform the commands. And we want to show what cat does and what redirection does while watching a file. So
you can see they're both wearing short sleeves shirts, so nothing up their sleeves.
Ah.
That was a labored joke there, Jim. You really worked for that one. All right. So let us skip ahead to cat. So let's see. Let's do.
Well, let's. How about we?
Wait, before we get to cat,
Create a file. Yeah, go ahead.
before we get to
We
cat,
have fun.
go up to where you did the find command. Control
Left.
R.
Control R find. Use your history. Okay.
Yeah, run that again. Okay. Now let's get rid of those stupid permission denied errors.
Oh, I thought that's the next chapter.
No, that's right before cat.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
the redirection that you skipped.
Oh, sorry. Oh, the
So,
redirection that I skipped.
Redirect. You could output that, right? I want to find all of the funds, but I want to send it to a file, or just one.
Yeah, 1 and 2 mean different things.
Yeah.
So
This would append it. Yeah.
yeah. So that's key. So single arrow.
So say fund.text. Right, boom. And then now you might think that all that stuff is going into fund.text, but cat fund.text.
It hasn't completed yet.
Well, no, you would like to less from that text.
Fine. Tail fund.text.
You are switching over to. You don't want to.
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
what
I mean, it hasn't finished yet, but you can see that those permission denieds are not there, right?
So he did it on the right-hand side. If you missed that, on the left-hand side, it was still running. On the right-hand side, he catted what the contents of the file were, and it's just one line that says this is where fun is.
Right. But if you want on the left-hand side, if you want to get that same output, the output of just the stuff you care about, not all the stuff that you can't see, you can take, so 1 arrow goes to an output file, 2 arrow,
Append.
2 greater than, I guess, redirects the error, not the
No.
standard out.
No,
No.
One arrow creates a new file every time. 2 arrows appends to the
It
file.
appends.
Greater than.
He wants you for
The number
Digit
2
there.
Oh,
and
the
then
number
greater
2.
than.
2 greater than, yes.
2 greater than, and then the
No.
number.
No space.
I'm trying. Calm down.
And then /dev/null is going to take the error output and send it to hell.
Yeah.
Not quite hell. It's like what I would call the suggestion box at most places, just the endless pit of nothing. Right. It'll send it to
Now-
nothing.
Now you get just what you wanted to see, which was,
I
find me all the funds without all this stupid
Without the
permission
errors.
denied issues.
didn't really get that though.
So is it 1 greater the radio standard output and the 2 is the console?
I mean,
No,
get
1
rid of
is
fun
standard
dot
out,
text.
2 is
What?
the
Get rid of fun dot text
error
off the end
out.
there and see what
Standard
happens.
error. No, standard out and standard error.
There it is. I think your fun dot text screwed it up.
Okay, so that's redirecting standard input versus error input, 2 separate streams.
Yeah.
Single arrow is redirecting standard input,
Standard output.
output, sorry, and the number 2 and an arrow redirects standard error. And so permission denied error messages go into a different output stream.
And this
We've seen 2 different ways now.
will make it twice.
And if you want to see standard
Why'd your
output
machine so
and
slow?
errors,
It's not.
what do you do?
What's that?
If you want to redirect them both,
Yeah, if you want to redirect them both.
you flip to page 52.
You can do an ampersand rocket.
Yeah, you put an ampersand instead of a 2. So
Two
you
greater than apple one.
2
Or just
greater
ampersand
than
rocket.
Wait, what?
Two greater than.
well, just ampersand rocket in
Yeah.
this version of Linux will be fine.
Ampersand?
Ampersand greater than. That says both streams. Older style is 2 greater than ampersand 1, but you can do ampersand
Well,
rocket.
you just
now.
sent it to hell.
everything.
Well, yes, he sent everything to hell, but if instead of from the
Right.
Should be there with the rest of us.
More like purgatory.
Yeah.
It's more like.
No, it
It's the void.
yeah.
They sent it into the void.
The bit bucket. Literally the bit.
Every one of those caused a big bang somewhere.
Yes. So he just sent both streams to one file called everything.txt,
To the bit thing.
Oh.
and there it all is.
So can I capture the success in one file and the errors in another file?
Yes, you can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Moving on. Yeah, you can. You would do it to. It's on here. It's
Two greater.
2 greater and
One greater file.
Oh,
yeah.
You don't need one. One is fine.
double. Yeah, you can put it all in one line. Actually, I guess he doesn't have that in here, but you can do that. All right, give me a clear. All right. So cat. So the cat command reads one or more files and copies them to standard output, right? So he was just catting a file. So it just goes in, reads all the text, and spews it to standard output. So what it's used for generally is concatenate files. So create, what was that?
Well, these are 2 different files.
Okay.
He's got his everything.
So ls, show me the files you've got there. You've got fun and fun text, or everything in fun text, right?
Everything's all the errors, and Funtext has it ran twice.
Okay, so if we want to concatenate the 2, we would say cat of one of the 2. I don't care, everything text or fun text or whatever. And it's how do you put a second file on the list?
Just another file.
Just another file, right? So just fun text and everything text, and then rocket greater than to some new file name. Okay, that's fine too. And now if you less that thing, less the some new file name. A useless file. Now it's got all this stuff, and if you go to the end,
Well, if you notice,
It's at the top.
this is
it's
the
at
top.
because you did it in that
You
order,
put it
right?
first.
Yeah.
So the first 2 lines of the file are there, and then the rest of the file, so you just merge the 2 files together. Concatenate. That's what cat stands for.
In the category of stupid Linux tricks, like you could do that with like MPEGs, right?
And that's what's in here, right? And that's what he says. His example is if you, and I love how he says it, like casually throws it out there. He says,
If you happen to
multimedia files are often split this way on Usenet. Moving on. It's like, all right, dude, like, I know what you're doing with those
have your
files.
totally legit home movie that you want to combine.
Yeah.
I've downloaded DVDs from Oracle. They don't have
You can download DVDs.
You stole a car?
From Oracle. Or
Yeah.
OS releases.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing he said, so let's rem a couple of these files just to clean up your life.
All
So
right.
can you rem everything in fun and fun text? Rem fun star. Nice. And then rem everything. Rem everything.
Read this.
No. Well, that's fine too. I don't care actually. Yeah, that's fine.
EPV.
Oh, it's a directory. You can't. Now, how would we fix that, Paul? Any idea how would you fix can't remove a directory?
Reboot the server.
RF. YOLO.
Just don't do it for slash or sc or.
I'm all right. Recursive force. That's what the R and the F are. So I know what I'm doing. Oh, that's clean. All right. So what if you just type
Can you
cat?
delete files recursively for subdirectories, but keep all the folders in?
Yes.
I didn't hear the question. I'm
Can
sorry.
you delete just the files without the directories?
Yeah, you don't use the dash line.
I
You
don't
need
think
the
the
R.
You need the R for recursive, but you need, there is a switch, I think, just for files. I think there's a way to do
I
that.
know you are fine.
You could do it with find, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Recursive force.
Remove empty directories. That's pretty common.
Wait, by default, RM does not remove.
Right, it doesn't remove
Directories.
if it has
Use
anything.
the R to remove each listed directory. To remove the file name that starts with, yeah. Follow-up question for Dave. I don't know. Okay.
Well, you can certainly do find pipe to RM. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we're about to get to pipelines, and then we'll talk about that. So the other thing he says is just type cat and nothing after it. You press enter, and it's like, what is it doing? It's just sitting here. It seems like nothing's happening, but actually, what it's doing is it's redirecting. It's going to what does he say? He says if it's not given any arguments, it reads from standard input, and since standard input is by default attached to the keyboard, it's waiting for you to type something. So you type something. Hello, Joshua. And you type Control D to tell cat that you've got to the end of your file, and then it's ULS. It didn't put anything there, right?
Nope.
So it just
you
typed that once, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he typed hello Joshua once, and it just took standard input and put it to standard output. So he says you can do cat to cat with greater than and then a name of a file. So we want to create a file called whatever. I don't care, foo.txt or something. Yeah, whatever.
Is this basically like a really crude text editor? Just basically add something?
Oh, really crude. It's the best.
The best ever.
I do all my editing.
Nice. Okay. And Control D will say I'm done. And he just catted whatever was typed into that file. So now less whatever. Yeah. There you go. Okay. And we know that cat accepts standard input. In addition, it can take redirection in the other direction, right? So you can cat and less than and whatever. And then it reads the file and puts it back out as standard output. So you can change the direction of the input. What he didn't mention here, which I wish he would have, and it kind of is what goes into pipelines here, is a lot of times in Linux, I see a lot of people using cat and redirection and pipelines to do crazy stuff with like going into files, reading the input out, then piping it to the next thing in the command, doing some crazy stuff, and then catting it back out to another file.
Like
so you'll see
something
cat with the redirection operator going both directions and pipes in between to build a multi-step sequence. It can be confusing if you don't understand which direction, if you don't understand what the greater than and less than means. Is it reading from standard input or standard output, and is it putting it to standard input or standard output? So
that's what the arrows are for.
That's what the arrows are for.
Does it have the concept that, like in DOS we have batch files?
Yeah.
Shell scripts.
Bash files, yeah.
Shell scripting is going to be one of the future.
It's got so many
different ways to run scripts. Yeah, you can do any number of scriptings, but yeah.
Pick your language. Yeah.
But we're in Bash, right? So the equivalent, like a batch file in DOS, is writing CMD commands, a Bash script in Bash, right? Bash commands. So you can write Bash scripts.
Yep.
Okay, so pipelines. I think the one I like on pipelines the best is on 55, the second to last one. So do an let's just do the one he has, ls /bin space /usr bin. No, space. Two separate ls, two separate things. /usr.
Bin.
Piped to sort.
That's what I meant.
Piped to unique uniq -d. Piped to less. So do an ls of these two directories, sort them, unique them, and unique -d takes out only the give me only the duplicates. To remove duplicates from the output. So if we want to see, so this will be just give me the ones that are duplicated. Yeah. So this is from those two folders, bin and user bin, sorted in alpha order, show me only the ones that show up in both folders. So if you're looking for a program that might be installed in two different locations because you're trying to delete all the other ones, you can use like a sort with a unique D on multiple folders to try to find all the locations where it is. That's kind of cool. And sort, piping to sort is handy. Just if you just did ls of where you're at, or do you have anything in this folder right now? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, whatever.
I got whatever.
Clear. You just have a whatever.
Just whatever.
Create to another
The
one.
type symbol is kind of like a verb.
Right. It's
Yes.
located in command, except a low level concept.
Yeah, so now ls pipe to sort. Oh, it's already sorted, so that doesn't really help you. But anyway,
Dash R.
so yeah, pipe to sort dash R.
Reverse alphabetical.
Take the ls and then run it through another command, another bash built-in bash shell command that sorts
Can
it.
it do a word count on the contents of whatever?
It can, yes, it sure can.
Can I load the whatever onto my mapper, my Hadoop cluster
Yes.
on a MapReduce?
Yeah, you can spend $47,000 to look at the whatever file. So if you've done any PowerShell, then pipelines might be familiar to you. I mean, you can do it in CMD as well. But again, I don't see a lot of people doing it unless they're doing heavy batch scripting, but normal Windows users don't do it. But if you do PowerShell, it's much more prevalent in PowerShell that you'll be piping things together. It's gonna be the same concept. Okay, sticky notes, am I missing anything?
The tail?
The tailing, right. Oh, we want a tail. All right, so let's do a clear. And on the right-hand side, let's tail whatever without a follow, just to show what tail does.
Hello.
Okay, so tail says give me the end of the file. This file happens to only have one line. And tail, what I think is a very useful option, and we found out you can do this in PowerShell very easily. I didn't realize it, but Linux has been around for a long time. I use it a ton in watching log files. You do tail -f for follow, and then whatever file you want to. Well, don't do that because
You can watch however many rows you want, like dash something too.
you can get however many. Yeah, dash. I think it's N or L.
and then-
Yeah, N for
and
show
then
me.
a number.
Like tail by default is like 10 rows, I think. And so if you say
105.
-50, it'll give you the last 50 rows instead of last 10. So don't tail those because that's useless. Clear that and tail whatever -f.
Tail.
SSH dash log.
No, he'll just tail whatever. Okay, press that. Okay, now go over to your left-hand terminal. Okay, and sure, double. So actually do single first. Cat that, and then yeah. Well, you wanted to cat something into whatever, so you want to cat
right.
single pipe into whatever, and then enter or whatever. Yeah. So look at what tail just did. So single redirection operator, it says whatever just got truncated. With a single pipe, it just erases what was there, and you're starting over. So now he's going to type hello, and now tail on the other side's updating. Right. So do a Control D on your left-hand terminal. So it's Control D will say I'm done with the file. Now do a cat with a double redirection operator, whatever. And now look, the tail didn't get truncated that time. So double redirection says append. So now just type some other stuff, append and enter and append and enter, you know, like type some lines and press enter and type some lines and press enter. And you can see on the tail, it's live updating. So you'll be tailing log files all the time. That's what I'm tailing all the time. I'll run my node server and it'll produce a log file and I'll tail the log file while I hit the website. And I want to know what the heck's going on and I'm live updating and watching the log file. So Control D on your left-hand side. Another thing to notice that it's a little trick they say in cat. He said the single operator, where did he say what the trick was? So if you just do cat single operator file name, I guess enter Control D, there was a short form for it, but he said a lot of people use this as a short form to truncate a file. Because if you just do cat single,
No, just greater than.
oh yeah, no cat,
Greater
right?
than whatever.
Just greater than and the file name. That's what it was, just in the redirection operator. So you just say greater than whatever, enter. And now notice the tail truncated. So that's a shortcut to just truncate the contents of a file. You want to truncate a log file, greater than log file txt, boom, it's just wiped out. Keeps the file name and the file there, just blows away all the content.
So there's a lot of things there that seem like arguments, but they're just like shell. Like if you just put star right there, enter. So it says like here, command not found. It's because it's actually expanding, like ls. It's expanding this list, and since it didn't know what else to do, it tried to interpret all of those as commands.
Mm-hmm.
Try to interpret the first one as a command.
Yeah, and
well,
it failed.
And it failed. Presumably, if that succeeded, maybe it would try the other ones too. But yeah.
So I guess I kind of lost.
Go ahead.
This is kind of a stupid question, but
No
how
stupid
did you
question.
get the two screens? They're the same. They're two different terminals, and one is the standard output of
So he just opened two copies of the, so he's on OS X and he opened the terminal application twice and he's just connected to that. We're connecting to that machine over there, but he's connected to that machine as the same user, right? He's just got
Same
two
user.
sessions of it open to the terminal. And so they're two totally separate instances of terminal. He's doing commands in both. And what he was getting live updating on the right is because the very first line of the right-hand terminal says tail-f, and F means basically to follow a file. I call it follow. I don't know if that's what it actually stands
Monitor in
for,
the book.
but monitor, yeah. And then
F for monitor.
Yeah.
right, monitor. So
Okay, I think I got it. Thanks.
a PowerShell, yeah. So I would have said yes. There's no such Windows equivalent until like 2 hours ago when he told me you can do it in PowerShell with tail -- watch.
Yeah,
Right.
it's,
Tail file name -- watch.
but it's you say GC to get the contents of the file, and you say -tail -
Watch. I think it's watch.
You can type tail as a man tail, right?
You could.
You
can
type
type it.
You can type it, but I don't think you want the output of a man tail. But on Windows, if you're in PowerShell, you can do this, but CMD does not have an equivalent that I'm aware of. So. Greg.
Question about the terminals. What's anyone know the significance of the virtual terminals 1 through 6?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
available from the console, not from where he is right
Yeah.
now.
Well, they're not available at all on OS X, right?
Yeah.
In the Bluetooth,
Yeah,
you
that's
hit,
not real Unix.
you hit Control Alt F1 and it opens
Yep.
the
Right.
virtual terminal.
Well, it depends. So, okay, so
How's that different from just a terminal?
It's not very different.
it's not very different.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't. I mean, back in the I mean, there's different init levels. I don't. It's
Yeah, but like, so the difference is like, you imagine you didn't have that, then you just have one terminal like sitting there, right? So it's back in the 70s, it's one there, and like what an innovation it was to have 6 that you could access, right?
So this is just sort of legacy.
Yeah.
yeah. Before Win like
If you have a real Unix system like a Mac, then you don't have to worry about it.
That's funny.
yeah, you got to like green screen. You know, like just pure green and black, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you were locked in a process, so like
Plus, they're all virtual anyways, right? Because like before it was like teletype.
Yeah.
Okay. So he mentions grep on 56. It's a very powerful way to search for contents inside files. He does a very simple example of grepping, and he's grepping for the word zip. The most powerful use of grep is to use regular expressions. So we talk about regular expressions later. That's how you'll see it used mostly, is people will be grepping for some pattern of text across basically a series of files. So in his example, he's LSing 2 folders. So that we can just do it ls/bin and ls/bin space /user bin. Huh?
Wait, not watch. Sorry. Just
all right.
It wasn't right.
Great. USR bin. Pipe it to sort. Pipe it to unique.
Just sort minus you.
Sure. Pipe it to grep space zip. So he's gonna, before you run that, just he's gonna do ls on these 2 directories, sort them, and get rid of the duplicates. And then within that resulting list, he's going to grep for the term zip. Right. So if you go ahead and press that now, and we have coloring.
Ooh.
Where it shows where the word is. So that's a really simple example of grep, but you can do -I for ignore case. We have case sensitive file systems. That's one you're going to use a lot, ignore case. And you can do regexes, so you can look for file system file string patterns. And that's where it's going to be very powerful. And it's fast as all
Heck.
hell. So
Minus V is also handy.
-V, which is,
Inverted.
oh,
Show you the lines that don't match.
right. That would be useful. Zgrep, the German
What do you
version.
got? Zip grep.
Super useful when you're looking at running processes. You can grab
Yes.
Yeah.
specific processes and focus.
And there was yeah, and we'll get to that in chapter 10. I think we'll talk about processes. There's one last one that was new to me. I liked was TEE. I liked his analogy of it, that it was like a plumber's T, and so it allowed you to pipe it and to output and to a file. So it's like a T in the line. So the data is going to come across, and you go, oh, by the way, siphon all the data off and store it here, but also send it out to the output window. That was kind of cool. TEE. All right. Where are we at on time? 7:48. Got a little bit of time. So chapter 7. So Jim already kind of talked about expansion, brace expansion, and how it tries to take what you type and expand it. So shows a little example on arithmetic. The one I liked the best actually was on 63. So LS here, what do you have? All kinds of weirdness. Okay, so do mkdir, curly, open curly.
Curly?
Yep, 2009, ... 2011.
Oh, yeah.
Close curly, just do that. And then LS. So that was kind of cool, right? 2009, 2010, 2011, and it created the folders. His example is actually somewhat reasonable, although I don't know any photographers that run Linux, but he said, like, if you're a photographer and you want to create all the folders in this structure to put all your photos in, it's more useful if you have a crap load of directories.
I'm losing it right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry to my one Finnish viewer left on YouTube.
That's me.
Yeah. There's 6 of you in there. Anyway, there's times when I've had to create like a complex directory structure that followed a pattern or whatever, and that's kind of useful to be able to do it that way. So, talks a little bit about quotations, double quotations. Those were pretty straightforward, I thought. Escaping characters, advanced keyboard tricks. So here's where he talks about cursor movement. Dave asked earlier, how do you go back and forth? So Control A to the beginning of the line, Control E to the end of the line inside the terminal, Control F, Control B, forward and back a character, although we can also see just arrow keys and Alt keys. Alt F goes forward, Alt B goes backward, but at least in OS X, Alt goes forward and back without the modifier. Just press Alt and arrow and it moves words at a time. So that was pretty cool.
That's important.
Well, we're doing volumes here.
Yeah. And then he talked about cutting and pasting text inside the terminal, and they call it killing and yanking.
Which is yeah.
Yeah, so most, like, again, OS X and stuff, they have traditional, in this case, it's Command-C, Command-V support, and they have some ways to kind of do that. But if you're using just the keyboard, they have ways to delete. This is, I didn't know this, actually. This is kind of cool. Control-T and Alt-T allows you to transpose letters. So when you typo something, you can just go back and hit it, and it'll just flip the word. So that was kind of cool.
Well, hey, oh, it's good.
You drop back to your Mac.
Any text processing that is applicable in V can be used on the command line?
Vim, you mean?
Subset. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
inside Vim, inside VI, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know that all of it is. Not all of it.
A lot of
VI
them
supports more than the shell supports, but yeah, a lot of those command strokes will work.
And if you highlight a word, that automatically puts it into your clipboard, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but I assume you mean highlight by using your mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have mice in Linux. You have to throw those away. They don't work. So.
Not true.
Yes, if you highlight it with your mouse, it will work. But then, like, the Linux gods will smote you for using a mouse.
Yeah.
It's all about the keyboard, baby. All right, we talked about history. I'd just like to point out one random thing. Anybody on the regular book on page 73 is in table 8.4 on page 73. Is your book have a proper question mark? Because that is the weirdest question mark I've ever seen. All right, I don't know what font that publisher used, but that's the stupidest looking question mark I've ever. I had to look at it and go, what is that character? How do I type that? I'm actually just guessing that's a question mark. It says Alt dash backwards S with a dot under it. I'm just gonna guess that's a question mark. Page 73 on table 8.4.
Yeah.
It says display a list of possible completions. Press Alt dash. What's that character? Is that? I guess that's a question.
That's a question mark. Yeah.
Strangest type font I've ever seen. Somebody mentioned earlier that I get angry over the littlest things, so they were correct. They were correct. Okay, we talked about history already, searching history, whatever. Talk a little bit about permissions, and then we'll wrap up with processes a little bit. I didn't think we were going to make it all the way through. So let's do the one that caused all the permission errors. You tried to do a what? You tried to do a find on something, and it said permission denied everywhere.
No.
You tried to find fun on /find/fun, or don't pipe it anywhere though. See, this reverse incremental is not going to work for you because you got all kinds of pipe characters in the way. Oh, you are lazy.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. There you go. Okay, run that. So then he gets a bunch of things that say, permission denied or whatever, right? So that's because he's a regular user that doesn't have super user permissions to look into those directories. So there's a discussion in here about super user and elevating permissions, and then we're not going to get through all this. There's a whole discussion about how to set permissions on files. The one that you're going to use most often as a Windows person who just wants to use a hammer is you're just going to press SUDO and the command you had before. So, yeah.
I'm having to use that Chown thing all the
Okay, we'll talk about Chown. Cool, cool. So go ahead and
Not
just
everyone likes the word Choni.
go ahead and do, yeah. And now it's going to ask you for your password, not super user passwords, but for Paul's password, right? And now, well, there's still some he doesn't get access to, but a lot less. There's only one that he didn't get access to. And so now it's successfully read. That's just elevated permissions. That's run as administrator in Windows. Think of it that way, essentially. So you mentioned the chown or also chmod. So chmod, what do we decide? It's called chmod, not chmod. I prefer chmod, but chmod apparently is how we pronounce it. That allows you to change the permission set on the file, and he discusses the 3 sets of permissions. So if you LSL where you're at,
Sorry.
4 sets, right? 4 sets. Sorry.
What is LA?
Yeah, and so you can see there's read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, nothing, execute. And he talks about the different octal positions and how you can use chmod. So basically, if you need to change read, write, or execute permissions on a file for either the whole world or for the group the user's in or the user themselves, or what's the other one, the super user? What's the 4th one?
Set UID, set GID.
Yeah, set UID and set GID are a little bit different though, right? That would make that would make you be able to elevate the permissions of or make the file run as the permissions of a specific user instead of the executing user, which I feel like is a hack. We talked about this earlier. It's a little bit of a weird hack. Anyway, you may need to modify the permissions. You may see this in Linux scripts when you download some code and it says you need to modify the permissions so that you're able to execute it. Because by default, a downloaded file, they don't want you to execute an arbitrary script. You may need to chmod on a file and give yourself execute permissions. Or as Dave was saying, he has to use chown a lot to change the to change the ownership of the. Where was that on that page? Is it after chmod?
What is it? Sorry.
Chown.
Change the owner.
Chown is. I thought it was. Oh, there it is. Page 90. Page 90 talks about chown, and you can change the ownership of the file from its current owner to user Bob, for instance, in his example. So you can just give somebody else ownership over the file.
So here,
I don't know why you'd have to be using chown that much unless you're not using chmod. You're actually trying to grab ownership of files.
So
you can run it?
I'm on a Windows server and I'm using Sigwin.
Yeah.
So maybe I copy files over from somewhere else or something.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm trying to get this one SSH user to own things.
Okay.
And
just
you could just
I'm intersecting
chmod them. You could just change the permissions on them to give yourself execute permission without changing the owner on them. You don't have to necessarily own the file
or
yourself.
when you're copying the files, copy them as the user you want to be.
That's true. Yeah. If you wrote the file in the first place of Linux and you own it, right? And then we did I don't know what you're off doing. Oh man, Joe. And then we did sudo to execute the command. And it says execute the command as another user. We discussed this today. We always view sudo as executing a super user.
It's the default.
And that's the default, but it doesn't necessarily mean executing a super user. It could be set to execute as just a different user. And whether you can actually execute a super user permissions or not are set up in a config file, the sudoers file. Yeah.
Sudo commands are.
Yeah. So, but in most distros and everything I've ever played with, if you just want to run as administrator, just use sudo, the command. Now, what he did before, if you do history or you do whatever, that up a couple times, back to the S. So he did find/name fun, and that got permission denied. And then he did sudo, that thing. So go up one more time. Run that again. So he just ran one and he went, oh, I needed to run that as super user. You can just shortcut that by saying sudo space bang bang. And that says run the last command with this in front of it. Right. That's very handy. And they mentioned that the expansion for bang bang can be used for other things too. It can just be used for the modifying the last command, right?
Like bang bang tab.
All right. Processes. So if you're used to looking at, what what is this stupid thing called Windows? Task Manager in Windows, and you want to see what the running processes are. There's top you can do. And these are all of the processes running on the box. The far right is the command. The second column is who the user is running as. And then you've got a series of resources that it's utilizing. This is where Chris had mentioned it's really useful to use grep when you're trying to find, because there's a bunch of processes here. And for whatever reason, top doesn't show them all by default. I don't know why.
Top and then also like real time. Like you can I forget what the command is.
PS.
Real time.
Oh.
There's a PS command which gives you instantaneous snapshot of everything.
Yeah, where you can make it refresh all the time and
Top
grabbing
Top
that.
does that.
Yeah, top does that.
It's
Yeah.
refreshing.
Yeah,
There's
top will
another way to
update
do
and
it.
refresh.
Keep out of that, Paul.
Yep.
Just do a PSAX.
Yeah, so the other one you can use is called PS, and you can pass parameters to PS called AX, not pipe, just PSAX.
Sorry.
So just do that.
Now go up
Yeah,
again,
like that.
or do a watch bang bang.
Oh, see, here's an interesting use of
Watch.
bang bang.
Yeah.
Instead of sudo, you're doing watch and then the command you did before. Watch bang bang would be watch space PSAX, right? Which is what I just did. And then that's like a live refresh, right?
Yeah, every
Should
2
be.
seconds. Or so you could have like also like if you're only interested in something, you could grep it and then
Right. Yeah. So let's say we were only interested in like the watchdog processes, right? So if you break Control C out of this and then you do up and then, oh, can you add after bang bang? You can,
Well,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So go up to watch bang bang like you just.
Well, he can't go
Oh.
up watch bang bang. It's
Yeah,
expanded.
that's fine. Okay. And then pipe it to grep and watchdog. That's what the thing was
Not sure if
called.
That'll work the way you want it.
Yeah, because I think it's.
Oh, you need a partial match there, right?
Yeah, I think you need to put the PS and the grep in parents.
For what? Put this in.
Put the PS and the.
Oh yeah, because the
Grep
watch
in
is gonna screw us up. Yeah. So you need that piped expression to evaluate first, right?
So much for that.
Well, there's
Oh, are
another
those
grep in one.
parentheses or
Yeah.
braces?
Those are parentheses. Try dropping the watch. We don't care so much about the watch, but let's just do it without the
Yeah.
parens and without the watch.
Parentheses should create a subshell.
There we go.
I'm back.
So that will grep the, piping to grep, right? We're just piping the output of PS to grepping for a specific thing. Now we found just the watchdogs that we care about. Yeah, top PS. And then we talked a little bit about putting processes in the background and switching to them and foregrounding them. I had always called this forking the process. That's probably not right, but okay then. All right, well, then there you go. Don't listen to me. That's what I always use it, but it talks about using the ampersand sign, right, to put it into the background. So a lot of times in testing, we've done this recently, a lot of times in testing Node, you want to run your Node web server, but you want to background that so you can have your shell back. So you'll SSH into your Amazon instance and you want to say node space app.js and it'll start, but that will also take over standard output and it'll just be blocking. And if you press Control C, it'll stop running Node. And you're like, well, no, I want to spawn Node and then stay on the terminal. So you just say Node, you just put an ampersand at the end. So node space, my app.js ampersand, and it runs Node off into a background process and you get the terminal back. And then you can switch back and forth between those processes. So if you want to go in and look at the standard out from that backgrounded process, you do jobs, I think, right? Jobs will show you all the things running, and then you can bring it back to the foreground.
No jobs here.
Yeah, you don't have anything running here.
Can you run your top command like
Yeah. Top in the back.
Sure, you could go top and then ampersand, right? Top ampersand, and then say jobs, right? And then, oh, it died immediately.
Yeah, it doesn't have TTY as standard out.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not gonna
That's
stay.
good
open.
enough then.
We understand what it does.
It does push it in the background, and top happened to die. You would have to top probably has a TTY on it. You could have parameter.
Sleep in the background.
Sleep in the background.
You need a number.
All right. Paul's tapping out. He can't take it.
All right. Well, he made it to the end anyways. That was the end of it, right? So, and then there's kill and kill
I
all.
can do this. I can handle this.
And
Oh, yeah.
congratulations to Jim Counts, the keyboard here.
Yeah. Jim did all of that. Yeah, kill all is kill all of a subset of things, which Yeah, so kill all watchdog would kill all those things we found called watchdog. Right. I don't. Yeah, probably not a good idea to kill that, but
Tail. Boom.
yeah, kill all the tail, and then it killed the tail that was running over there, right? So any other tail instances that were running would have got killed too. I just actually found the command to do this in CMD recently because I had to kill all Chrome. There's like 50 million Chrome exes, and I'm gonna forget what it is. But you can do a task kill, but there's a task kill with an F and something else too, like an I or something. There's another switch to task kill to actually get it to kill. So like on our build server running automated tests, it spawns a bunch of Chrome processes that won't die. And so at the end of the build, I just kill all Chrome that might still be running. So task kill in CMD to do that. Okay, man, we barely made it. 8:03. We blew through all of that. Any questions that we didn't hit? Anything you still wanted to cover?
How do you
We did
use
start
Linux?
Let me Google that for you.
Where is alt control?
Well, it's called shutdown.
So I found, well, I actually want to visualize my file system on Linux. I just SSH into like WinSCP or something like that. If I didn't install the GUI, I just do command line, or not, if I just have a command line up there.
If you have an SSH, you could use FileZilla.
Yeah, so I use FileZilla or WinSCP or something like that just to see the files that are on the server. Does everyone else do that?
No. I don't because I guess it depends on what you're trying to do, but
You're copying and pasting from directory to directory a lot.
I tend to copy
that's easier in the command line for me though. I wouldn't drag and drop and stuff. I would be using ls. It depends because like I would be using wildcards and stuff to do that. So I'd be like CP all log stars to here or whatever, like ship all logs back or something.
If you're trying to see the overall directory structure, DU is a very handy tool.
DU.
Yeah, so type of what does DU give you here?
Disk usage, right?
In blocks, of course.
Delivery.
H4.
But can you do R? Can you do
It's
tech
not
R?
magically R.
But see, that doesn't give you what you want, which is an actual tree visualization.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, if you go to a
That's a Windows
normal
thing.
tree, it will.
Well, you can use tree. I mean,
Where you-
Well, we don't have tree. So let's install. We didn't.
Install a tree.
Yeah, we didn't talk about kill that. We didn't talk about how to install packages. Really, we didn't show one.
Well,
You
it's
kill it.
because it's in the next section.
Yeah. So let's just install tree. So
Yeah,
this
Yum.
is you're on CentOS, I think. Yum
So
install tree.
Paul, do you do that?
What?
What Paul does?
Paul, do you do what Paul does?
Paul does it all.
Sudo bang bang.
So you use CyberDucky
Cryptdirt.
you move files around, or is it-
I do occasionally. It depends, you know.
CyberDucky. I don't know what that is.
So apparently that's like just like FileZilla.
Yeah.
So kind of the same pattern that.
CyberDucky. It's gonna be like your Usenet media scraper, right?
No, it's just a.
So that's on Mac, but I don't know. I prefer the command line actually a lot over visual, especially when it comes to managing files. I prefer the command line. There are some things that are, you know, a little easier. A block copy from one folder to one folder where it's a non-matchable set of, like it's just an arbitrary, just copy every, like, but you're not copying everything, but you're copying like a subset that isn't an easy grep. Like that might be easier, but a lot of times I'm either just copying everything over or I'm copying a pattern of files over, it seems like. So there's tree. And so you could install tree and get what you want. Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself like lost or forgetting what server your SSH is?
Yes.
It seems like as you're going through different servers, it's like,
Yes.
I just ran a command and I'm on the wrong server.
So I tend to do tabs in my terminal. So like in OS X, I create multiple tabs. And so I don't change SSH contexts within the same tab. I try not to. So I would just like, if I'm in, and then the tab, well, it's like this says pwit.dog at localhost, which doesn't quite help, but like it'll say at 52.36. Whatever that, and so then the tab will indicate what server it is. I try to do that.
So it's red on your production server.
Yeah.
White on your.
Yeah.
You can also put it into your path line too.
Hey, Brett.
Yes.
Second to last page talks about 4 different fonts that are used in the book, so that might answer your.
Where is that? That question mark is probably in its own font. They just searched it out. It's like Wingdings or something. It's ridiculous. It's the stupidest question mark I've ever seen. Okay, so that's the end of 10. So for the second section, for next month's reading, what we decided to do was, it will be starting part 2. We're going to read part 2 from chapter 11 and to page 200, which is the end of chapter 17. So it's just over 100 pages. So we'll read 11, 12, 13, under 100 pages. Yeah. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, which gets us about like part of the way into part 3. So all of part 2 and up to the end of 17, chapter 17. And the one that we'll get feedback on, I guess, next month is the next batch of reading. We think there's sections we can skip, like printing, for instance.
Just install cups.
Like, other than printing the book, when was the last time you printed something? So read through there. Post to the group. If you have questions, post to the meetup group. And I've noticed some people posting to the meetup group for this meeting. It's easier to post to the meetup message board. So there's a separate message board for all the people in the meetup group. So try not, like, if you want to comment about this specific meeting, you put a comment in the meeting. Otherwise, post it to the discussion group in meetup. That way everybody can see it. Okay. And thanks so much for coming. Take some pizza if there's any left over. Thank you, YouTube.